let's try to figure out a definition for what Elite 11 is right here on the show for our listeners. I gave one last week. I'm curious to see what you think it is now after having seen it in 2023.
Yeah, so essentially what it is a collection of the best quarterback prospects in the country, and the way that they get there is by qualifying through regional events. And you have to sign up for one of these regionals. So when we say best quarterback prospects in the country, there's a little bit of an asterisk there because you don't have to sign up, and not every single quarterback is going to participate in these things. Some guys have other commitments, sometimes they're playing other sports, whatever the case may be. But you go to one of these regionals and you compete in basically NFL pro day or combine style drills. And then at the end of the day, you're given some sort of a score. And whoever is running it, the coaches, the counselors, whatever word you want to use, they'll hand out essentially an automatic invite. Like in college basketball, if you win your conference tournament, you get the automatic invite to the NCAA tournament, you get the automatic invite to the Elite 11 finals. And then after those automatic invites are handed out from regionals, there's a certain number of discretionary invites that they can then pass out to get the total number of quarterbacks to 20. So essentially what you had is 20 quarterbacks out in California last week competing over the course of 2 days, like you said, with the third day then being the day that they declare a most valuable player. And then a day after that, they announced the quote unquote Elite 11 for the best 11 out of the 20. And it's just essentially 20 of, I think it was maybe the top 45 guys in the 247 Sports composite ranking. So you didn't have every guy in the top 20, but you had all of them within the top 40. And it was a really, really fascinating showcase because you had some of the bigger names that you've talked about on your show a number of times and written about as well at foxsports.com, Dylan Raiola, Julian Sayin, some of these names that college football fans already know. And so I had a blast just watching them, seeing what their characteristics are like, both as people and as quarterbacks. And it's a really cool insight into some of these names that will probably dominate our sport in the next 4 or 5 years once they get to the collegiate level.
It's always one of my favorite summer events. I really do look forward to it each and every year because people get to see up close what separates a five-star from everybody else, what separates a blue chip quarterback from everybody else. And to that end, I'm curious, as a man who has watched a lot of college football, in particular in the Big Ten, which quarterback impressed you the most at Elite 11?
Man, it's a really interesting question. And you and I share a great editor in Bob Harkins, and he and I were talking about sort of this idea that if you go into Elite 11 as a lower rated quarterback, but you play really well, should that be worth more than a guy who comes in that's highly rated and just does what he's supposed to do? And so I think if you were talking about the most impressive, it's got to be Julian Sayin. He was named most valuable player, the 5-star Alabama commit out of California, basically within an hour or so of where this event was at Redondo Union High School in a suburb of Los Angeles. And just his accuracy, his consistency, his poise. I mean, you can see why a guy like Nick Saban was interested in him, especially when you hear him talk and you hear him just sort of describe how he thinks about the position and what it means to him to play or be committed to play at a place like Alabama. He understands the tradition. He said it was a huge honor just to get a scholarship offer from who he described as the greatest football coach in college history. And so that was really fascinating. But then you look at some of the 3-star guys that really kind of came out of nowhere. And those were impressive to me too. I look at Ethan Grunkemeyer, committed to Penn State, who had a fantastic week, and nobody really even knew who this guy was 6 weeks ago. And now all of a sudden he's committed to Penn State and played fantastic over the course of 3 days. And a name that we can keep an eye on in the Big 12 in future years, Will Hammond from Texas Tech. He came out first in the Pro Day event and put up a great score of 45 that I think ended up finishing in the top 1 or 2, despite having to basically bat leadoff and fight all those nerves on the biggest day of the Elite 11. So kudos to him. So those were kind of 3 guys that really caught my attention, RJ.
One of those guys that you mentioned was not Dylan Raiola. So to your point, right, the one that you and Bob had spoken about, and I think that's a great take, is what do you have to do if you're already the number 1 player in 2024, let alone number 1 player at this event, to really capture everybody's attention? Was he able to do that at all throughout the time at Elite 11?
No, he absolutely was. I mean, Dylan Raiola is number 1 for a reason. And I think another fascinating sort of debate or discussion you can have is, are you the best prospect right now, or do you have the best ceiling based on your physical traits and all the different things that go into being a quarterback? Because when you look at Dylan Raiola, and you found out that his dad played center for the Detroit Lions, that wouldn't surprise you. I mean, this guy's legs are like tree trunks. He is built. And so when you look at these high school quarterbacks, some of them are slender, some of them are lean, some of them are tall but need to put on 20 pounds. Dylan Raiola looks like he could fit in an NFL locker room right now based on just the way he looks physically. And he had some throws, especially on some deep balls, where it just turns over almost like a punt in a way that you don't see from a lot of these high school guys very often. Now, the consistency wasn't quite there, especially relative to Julian Sayin. And in the accuracy event, he really struggled and was very disappointed in himself for struggling in their accuracy event that they had on Friday morning. But in terms of potential and glimpses, there's no question why this guy is rated #1. And physical traits and projecting those physical traits are two huge reasons why he's at the top of this class.
I've often said that it is wrong to take Elite 11 performances and layer them over the top of what you expect a college football career to be like. And I can give a history as to the hits and the misses for this event, but getting the invitation has always been the trophy. And as far as I'm concerned, that means you got one of the better quarterbacks in all of college football. But we also knew that before these guys get to the event. So at this event, what is it that they are looking to showcase? What is it that they are looking to prove, if anything at all?
Well, I think it's a unique environment for a lot of them, right? Because this would be the first time and maybe the only time, honestly, in their careers, except if they make it to the combine once their college careers are over, that they will have this collection of talent at their position all in one place. And don't get me wrong, it's a chance to have fun. There's a great vibe among all these guys. It's very laid back and relaxed. But these are competitors, and this is a chance for them to, you heard a lot of them say, find out how I stack up, especially if you were a lower rated guy and all of a sudden now you're next to 2 5-stars in these drills that you're doing. And so to me, I think the mental component would be what I was more interested in taking away from this if I was an evaluator, because do you have the moxie? Do you have the wherewithal to stand up to 19 of the other best players in the country at your position on the same field with a documentary camera crew pointed at you, in addition to parents and fans and media members? And that's not an easy atmosphere to tackle. And so the guys who come in and really thrive, especially if they're a lower rated guy that just kind of finds a way to rise to the occasion, I think that's really, really cool, especially when I think back on my completely undecorated high school soccer career. And I used to think that I would get nervous in a game against my crosstown rival, let alone, playing against a kid who's got D1 offers from everybody you can imagine. So I think it's really cool when some of these lower rated guys just kind of rise to the occasion on the biggest stage.
Thank you for watching the #1 college football show. Please remember to subscribe to the channel and like this video so that you don't miss any of the best college football coverage in America.